Hello and welcome to another Crush on Stamping video. My name is Merritt Passero and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Today we're going to make this fun flap card. It features several products from the new 2018 holiday catalog from Stampin' Up. So these products are featured on page 20 and it's the candy cane season. Comes in photopolymer and has 14 images, and it has a matching punch. And when you purchase the two together, you can save 10%. You can get all these items and products that I use in this video at Crushonstamping.com and click on the shop button. This is the punch, so it cuts out two images, the bow and the candy cane. And this is the stamp set. So it has multiple candy canes, a couple bows, and some other images that make this set really fun. We're going to also be using some designer series paper, as you can see, and that is from the Santa's Workshop Specialty Designer Series paper. Now this is one of the specialty designer series paper because it actually has white flocking on 4 of the sheets. So there's this darling Mrs. Claus and little elves, and their hats and things have the flocking on it. It also has this nice edge piece, and there's little dots of flocking. So even if you're using some of the coordinating framelits to cut some of these images out, you'll still be able to use this border piece on some of your projects. So there's this cute set, and then beautiful holly berries on the back. There's some snowmen with little elves and some cute trees. There's all these little elves working hard to deliver the presents. And a nice polka dot pattern on the back. Here's this sheet that we're using today, and it's again the candy cane flocked paper. And it has some bows on the back. And then there's this image sheet that has matching framelits that can cut some of these images out, or you can use it as a background, and some nice red candy canes. And then some toy bags and trees and elves. And then this pattern is really nice too. It's in the garden green, which is the green featured throughout the set. And it gives your eye a place to rest when you've got some of these other busy patterns. So it's nice that they included this paper in the set. So you get 2 sheets of each of those 6 designs. So let's get started with making this wonderful card. Now I first saw this flapful design from Laura Bartow from Wheaton, Illinois. She is another demonstrator that has kindly brought me into her flock and allowed me to join in on several of her downline meetings. And she had demonstrated this card for us using a different stamp set, and I just adapted it to use some of these products. So what's nice is it's got this cute little flap here, and then it opens this way. So you get a nice dimensional look with that. So let's begin with making the card basics. So what we're going to do is bring in our Stampin' Trimmer, and I'm going to again use Garden Green as my base, and that's because that's what's featured in that designer series paper that I have there. So I'm going to start out with a piece that's 8.5 by 11, and the first thing we want to do is cut this paper. Better open up my trimmer here. Cut this paper to 6.5 by 11. So we're going to start out and cut this at the 6.5 inch mark. Let's do it this way. Sorry. On the 8.5 side at the top, you want to cut it to 6.5. Now save this piece because we're going to use it for our flap. We're then going to take this piece and we're going to score it on the 2.25 inch mark. So I'm just going to slide this over to 2.25. Hopefully this is within the camera. Sorry, I'm still new at filming videos, so you have to bear with me. So 2.25, and we're going to this time use that scoring blade, which is the light colored blade. And I'm going to just give that a score. And then we're going to turn it and we're going to cut it at our standard card base size of 5.5. Now the reason I've done it in this configuration is so that I actually can make 2 cards at once, and I always like to do that because it's just so much more efficient. So we now have 2 card bases. We're only going to use 1 today. Now remember I said to save this piece of scrap? We're going to put it to good use. We're going to start by cutting this down to 1.25 by 11. So again, remember to always keep it flush up here against the top of the trimmer. So I'm going to cut this to 1.25 by 11, and then going to turn it and cut it to 10 inches. And now I need to do some scoring. So I'm going to pull my blade out of the way and go back to my scoring blade, and I'm going to score it at 6. No, that's not right. It's really 7. 7, sorry. 7 and 3. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to cut it at 5. So if you score it properly, you will actually have 2 of the latch pieces, which you can see is this piece right here that's kind of hidden. But since I messed up one, you'll only get 1 out of this piece. So let me repeat that. It's going to be cut to 1.25 by 11, and then you're going to score at 3 and at 7, and then cut it down to 5, and then you'll have your 2 latches. So the scrap most of the time isn't wasted. Okay, so we have the main parts of the mechanism cut. You're still going to need some other cardstock, of course, one of which is going to be a piece of Whisper White that's 5.25 by 4. That's a pretty standard measurement. We're also going to use a piece that's 4.25 by 3.25, and that's going to be to stamp our candy cane and our little greeting. Here's our strip of Designer Series paper. That's 2 by 5.25, and that will fit on our card there. And then, of course, some layering pieces. This is Poppy Parade, which is the red that is featured in this Santa's Workshop paper. And I just use one of our large ovals framelits to cut that. And then I always love to use the stitched framelits whenever I can, because again, it just adds more dimension, and I think it makes a more professional looking end product. So we now have all of our pieces, so let's get to stamping. So the first part that we need to do is stamp our candy cane and our bow and our Be Jolly. So again, we're going to use that Poppy Parade and the candy cane image. So I'm just going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that on our scratch piece. And I've found that having pieces of paper that are cut to this size usually ends up being a great size to make lots of little embellishments out of. So here's our candy cane. Then we're going to make our bow. Now the bow is super cute. It features 2 stamps so that you get that dimensional look. So the first, well, I guess while we're have the Poppy Parade out, let's go ahead and stamp our little Be Jolly. And so I'm going to stamp this right up here in the corner, because I'm going to just cut that out into a little sliver. So we're good with the Poppy Parade for now. And then we're going to use 2 greens, and we're going to use again the Garden Green for our darker image and Pear Pizzazz as our lighter image. So we're going to take our bow, and there's 2 bows in the set. There's a solid bow and a outline bow. So we're going to start with the solid bow, and we're going to use our Pear Pizzazz and ink that up. And again, I'm just going to stamp that down here in a corner. And since it's photopolymer, remember you need to just hold it down for a few extra seconds so the ink has a chance to transfer to the paper. So there's our solid bow, and then we're going to go in with our Garden Green on our outline image, and we're going to line that up. And sometimes I like to use the big part of the bow, and then I can just twist the stamp so that I can line that up. But I found that this one lines up really pretty nicely, and doesn't that make a great image? So we have this portion of the stamping. We can do our punching here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and stamp our inside piece now, since we have our inks out, and we're going to use those holly leaves. So we're going to use our 4 1/4, or actually 4 by 5 1/4, sorry, paper, and we're going to use our solid image holly, and then there's one that's a little less solid. This one isn't quite as noticeable in the difference as the bow is, but you'll know once you stamp it. So I'm going to start with my Pear Pizzazz, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp all those light little hollies in each of the corners. So, and they're all going to be kind of just facing inward. You don't really want to stamp something too much in the center, because some of that could potentially show through on this type of card design. But if you do get it right in the center or along the right side, then you should be safe that it's not going to show through on the front when the card is closed. Let me show you that. See how you can see this? You could certainly stamp a much more of a greeting here, or when you're signing the card, you might want to keep it more to the right-hand side because that is covered. Okay, so we've done our light color. We're going to go in with our dark holly leaves. And again, that's with the garden green. And I just like to do all of the same color at once, because then I'm not flipping back and forth between images and ink colors and getting confused. So it's okay if it doesn't line up perfectly. It still looks really neat. So I did some of those better than I did on others, but again, that's okay. So that is the leaves. We have to have some holly berries because that makes it just pop. So we're going to use these teeny tiny little berries and just stamp those around our holly leaves. And remember, you can always turn your paper. You don't have to be uncomfortable. The paper is movable. So we've got our images stamped there. So now we're ready to punch our previously done images. So with the Stampin' Up! Punches, they lock down for a easier way to stack them, which is great. So you just push on that latch and it opens up. And because it is an image that we're trying to crop out, I like to hold the punch upside down. We're just going to insert the punch and turn the cardstock so that you end up lining it up and then giving it a punch. So because I put this in the corner, I didn't lose too much cardstock there. And then we need to do our bow, and this time I didn't plan it properly. I should have stamped it over there because I'm going to lose quite a bit there, but live and learn. Do as I say, not as I do, as I tell most of my class attendees. So here's my bow, so I'm going to go ahead and punch that out. Isn't that cute? You get a white candy cane out of that. And then last but not least, I'm just going to use some scissors and cut this Be Jolly into a small little banner piece. Okay, so it's time to assemble. Now, you have to think ahead on assembling this card just a little so that you make sure that everything kind of gets tucked in and hidden. So I like to remember that the most of the tucking part is actually on the piece that has the oval, or you could do a label, a heart, any kind of image. So we can start with the easy part, which is gluing our candy cane paper to our fold here. So of course those dimensions allowed it to layer very nicely. So I'm just going to use some of our snail and layer this piece onto our card. Okay. Next we need to work with our latch. So we have our latch, our one good one. So we're going to fold that so we just have a nice little bend. And basically this is going to get tucked behind our white piece. So we're going to put adhesive here. And we're going to center that into the card as best you can. And so that folds over. Okay, so see how that's in the center of this card? And then we can glue this piece down into our base. But we want to make sure that we didn't glue this down, because if you did do that, you could still glue it around the back of the card, but this looks more finished. So we're going to turn this over, and we're going to put adhesive on our card base. And again, that's on the correct side. So I'm going to put this down. So there you go. And now we're going to use our layering ovals. So again, to make a nice tidy presentation, you want to tuck the flap into the center of our ovals. So we would start by putting some adhesive on our flap. We can fold this over, and what we want to do now is center again this oval on our card. So I'm trying to just get this piece right in the center and make sure it's kind of going straight, and then I can put that down, and then I can glue this piece on top, and no one's ever going to know. Well, they might know, but it just looks nicer that that flap is tucked back there. So there we go with that. Now, let me fish out my little candy cane here. So I'm going to glue my candy cane on my project. So now I'm trying not to put too much glue right up here at the bend of the candy cane, because I want to tuck that Be Jolly in there. So I'm just centering this kind of at a little jaunty angle there. And then I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of my Be Jolly. I'm going to tuck that back here so that sticks out. And then we can use some of our mini dimensionals, which will work perfect on a small embellishment like this, to put our bow on. So we'll peel off these little adhesive backs. And I can glue this so that I kind of cover up that one little corner. So there we go. So here is our fun flap fold card using the Candy Cane Season Stamp Set bundle. I hope you enjoyed that. I appreciate you spending some time with me today, and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.